Greetings and welcome back to Film Studio Otaku. Some of you probably got led here by my GH6 leak video. I'm going to talk about that more in another video soon, and that video got a little more attention than I intended. I really didn't want that to make it out to the mainstream. It's true, but regardless. So I have been using this actual Nikon Z6 body for about 2 years now, and I've finally sold it. It's gone. I'm actually, after this video, I'm going to be packaging it up, clean the sensor one more time for the new buyer, and send it out. Now, what made me finally decide after 2 years of using Nikon to change cameras? And what camera did I get? I hate clickbait, and I apologize for this. That's why I'm getting to the point real quick here. I simply bought another Z6. Not even a Z6 II. The reason is primarily that I've had this for 2 years, and though I've taken pretty good care of it, it's gotten some use, and I wanted to sell it while it was still in, what I'd call 80% usable life. I think, condition-wise it's great, but cameras, the more you use them, the shutters wear out and stuff like that. I haven't used the shutter that much though. I've been mostly using electronic shutter, so I think whoever got this got a pretty good deal. It's better than probably a lot of the cameras out there. But anyways, the deal is that I bought a used Z6 on B&H, but by buying it used on B&H, I was able to get the insurance. It's not the drops and spills insurance, but it does cover mechanical and electronic failure for a 2-year period. Could have gone for 3 years. I went for 2 years because I probably won't want to keep this that one for more than 2 years. So yeah, it's just basically to give myself a little assurance that I'm gonna have a camera that's gonna work for a long time. I'd considered the Z6 II, but for me, the Z6 is working fine, focus-wise and every other way. I mean, I'm on autofocus right now, and if you look again, I've got a little bit of a delay right now because I've been doing street video, and I want it to where when people pass in front of each other, it doesn't automatically focus on the person in front. And I just haven't bothered to go in the menu to change it because I'm not planning on too many people passing in front of me. But you'll notice if I try to do like a product shot, like hold this up, it's very slow if it even does it. Sometimes it just doesn't quite get it unless you really move it around. Oh, there we go. But yeah, so anyways, the Z6 has been extremely reliable for me as a photography camera, as a video camera. And what I get out of this, spec-wise, it's not that impressive. Okay, you look at the Sony a7 III's, of course, spec-wise, that thing blows this away. But actual performance in just regular video shooting without using high frame rates and whatnot, this holds its own, and in my opinion, it does better in most ISO ranges. And it's no slouch. I mean, this thing will give you extraordinarily clean video, I would say all the way up to 8000 ISO, and you can push well beyond that. The Z6 is clearly a very capable photo camera, and the colors that come out of this camera, just straight out of the camera, are awesome. The ability to fine-tune your colors and settings are more than enough. And honestly, it's, if anything, one of my complaints about this camera is actually the menu is almost too deep and maybe not quite set up to be the most convenient menu. There's certain things that are a little bit hard to find and remember. It's why I haven't gone, it's not necessarily one of the hard things, but it's why I haven't just gone in before this video to change that focus thing I mentioned. I basically copied the settings from this camera to that camera. I think there might actually be a way to save it on the memory card and do it. I gotta check that. But there's certain things that I haven't been able to figure out. Like I remember, oh, that was a deep menu, or something that me personally was, for whatever reason, I couldn't find one of them, and I'm gonna find it before I kick this out the door. I'm gonna spend more time, but is that to turn off, I don't have battery in this phone right now, to turn off the overlay of information on the screen completely so that you can see just a complete clear image. is something that I remembered. I had to actually dig pretty deep to find it on this one, and on that one I haven't found it yet. So anyways, I may eventually upgrade to a Z6 II if I can get a great deal on one used. The reason I can't really do it new is it's not the price specifically. For example, in B&H, I don't mind the price difference between the new and the used, but what it is the price in Japan. Ironically, the country that the camera comes from, Nikon, probably more than any other camera company, jacks their own people, the Japanese people who are the ambassadors, the true ambassadors, or whatever you want to call it, the home, the home people of this camera. The Japanese people, who are probably the most proud of Nikon compared to other people in the world, and deserve to get the best deal on these cameras, they get jacked. And I'm not talking a little bit. I'm talking Z6 II, I think, is something like 3,000 or maybe even more for the body. It's really, really, really high. And maybe 2,700. I know it's somewhere close to 3,000. The Z7 II is something like 4,000, 3,500, 4,000. I forget, but it's really, really ridiculous what they do here. And it was the same with the Z6 and the Z6 or C7 when they first came out. They were extraordinarily expensive here comparatively. I got this one actually I bought used in Japan. It was basically new, but very, very low shutter count. So in case you don't understand, the catch is that on B&H, if I buy a used camera, it can come to Japan. Although, actually, I believe at the time of the initial release of the Z6 and C7, they were able to send new ones from B&H to Japan. But very shortly after, they changed it, and you could no longer import them from the US, or at least not through B&H, to Japan. So yeah, unless it's a used camera. So I have to watch for the used bodies, and the new one I got was something like 9+ condition, so basically brand new. And you can tell, I mean, and again, like, this camera is working great. I mean, there's no real delay, but when I have that one on mechanical shutter versus this one, there's a difference in sound. I mean, you can hear that one's just a little crisper. This one is a little bit more used, and this one sounds smoother. Honestly, that one's like it's a tighter mechanism, where this one is it's been used a bit. Not too much. I'd say under 10,000 probably. I believe these are good for 300,000 shutters, mechanical shutters. So I feel like I have to justify that. It's weird, right? I mean, everyone sells their cameras online, but I feel like I have to, just in case maybe whoever bought this is watching. It's been very, very well cared for. Yeah, no, I took really good care of this camera and cleaned it regularly, cleaned the sensor regularly. So yeah, a side note, if you're going to get a Z6 or any mirrorless camera, really, for that matter, I would say actually any camera for that matter, but learn how to clean your sensor if the lens comes off. The Z6, you'll see a lot of comments about these being a dust magnet, and that's because the distance of the flange on the mount is very shallow. The sensor is just right there, and yeah, so it probably gets a little more dust than most camera sensors, but that also means that it's much easier to clean because it's just right there, super close to get. And I got myself locally, I bought myself a full frame camera lens cleaning kit. So yeah, I promised myself that I'd keep it short and concise as possible, but also not going to script it, because I've had this camera for so long and I've used it for so long that I'm not here to tell you every spec about it, because there's all kinds of information obviously about this camera. It's old enough that if you want to find something about it, you can. But yeah, I just wanted to get the point that the reason I've kept this camera so long is usability, quality of image, not only in photos, but the video, really. The 8-bit video in this, it's so good. It really is, especially in just 4K, 24p, or 1080p in pretty much every mode. The 120 frames per second for 1080p is really good, and honestly, I've seen a lot of 4K videos. Granted, it's YouTube compression, but often the 1080p 120 frames per second out of this looks better than 4K 120 or even 60 or whatever. It's really, they did a really good job. And the other thing with this is that I have shot with this in the rain. I've shot with this in the snow. I haven't taken it to too many, I mean, I've taken it, we'll say dirty places, muddy places, but I've never dropped it in the mud or anything like that. But I've taken this out in pretty severe rain, pretty serious snow, and I won't say that I didn't think about it. You know, it was in the back of my head, but I consciously made a decision to not let it affect what I was doing and what I was shooting, because for the price of these cameras and the reputation, it damn well better be weather sealed enough to handle that. And it did. It's never ever had a hiccup after I took it out in the snow or the rain. And you know, even the footage never had a hiccup. I mean, it was just, there's no ill effects. Though I mean, I've had this actually in the face of a typhoon. I mean, it wasn't in the center of the typhoon, but I've been out in this, and yeah, again, pretty serious wind blowing rain on the ocean. And yeah, don't go to typhoons on the ocean. Don't be like me. Yeah, with my son. Don't take your son to typhoon. Especially don't take him up on this giant cliff here. It's like a 300 or 400, I forget. It's a huge, massive cliff, like just straight. There's not even a fence there. Look at that. There's not even a fence. Huge, massive cliff in the middle of a typhoon. But don't do that with your children. You definitely don't want to do that. And yeah. So anyways, yeah, this camera has held up. Things I wish it had. I wish it had a flippy screen. Oh yes, how I do. And as a photographer too, because you know, I used to use the GH2, and the thing I loved about the GH2 is you would flip it out this way and you could just put the camera all the way on the ground. So you could get these super low angling up shots. With this, I can do it this way. I can get it flat. But verticals, oh man. Like from here, sure, oh yeah, vertical, but you put that on the ground and try to get that, and I mean, you literally have to, you know, kiss the ground with your cheek to get down there and do it. And I've done that, and people look at me like I'm crazy, which I don't care about that, but you know, I'd rather not put my face down on the ground when it's like soaking wet and muddy or whatever. So anyways, other thing is, checking it right now. The other thing that kicks me in the ass so much is the 30-minute time limit. I hate it so badly. Obviously, with an external recorder, you don't have that limit. I did have an Atmos Ninja Fi with this for, I don't remember, a couple months, but I ended up just saying, you know what, because I was using a gimbal too, and the weight was just too much. And what I was getting out of it, again, the video looks better. Because with N-Log too, like, at that time, there was really very, very few attempts at that time to really grade and bring out the best. And I was doing a lot of work trying to bring out the best for myself, but it was just too time consuming. And yeah, I like the Ninja 5. It's a great product, but it's just, the Nikon does so well by itself. I wish so much that it had 10-bit internal though, because yeah, it just makes it absolutely no point at that no point at that point to have the external recorder unless you really want RAW. But even then, I mean, we're hoping, right? The Z8 and the Z9 internal RAW, I think there's a high chance they'll be there, but definitely 10-bit internal. And if it's not, that might be the day that I jump ship from Nikon, because it's not it's not just bad business strategy at that point. Is kind of an insult to the customer's intelligence. I mean, I would even switch over to Canon, who I've always kind of, I don't know how to say it nice. I've not really been interested in Canon cameras. I've never really been interested in Sony cameras. Sony more so because of just kind of the cold feel, and I've had a lot of bad experience with customer service regarding Sony electronics, not cameras, but yeah, and Canon was kind of a little bit different. It was just that I always felt that Canon's lenses were overpriced. Their cameras didn't really impress me that much. I mean, I know they're great photo cameras, but yeah, Nikon was a happy medium for me. And This is where I'm going to probably be staying for a while, and that's the thing too with the Nikon is the lenses. Talk about price difference. You know, forget about the Z mount lenses. I mean, unless you're talking about this one right here, that's pretty much it. They're all overpriced, and sharpness is great. Like, I mean, okay, if you're really getting paid, genuinely getting paid, not talking about like getting a couple $100 here and a couple $100 there, but if you're really a professional photographer that makes, you know, a full salary, if you're making large stuff that gets printed out really big, a super sharp lens might make sense for you. But what we're talking about here, when we're talking about Z mount lenses versus F mount lenses, we're not talking about something sharpness wise that would be noticed in most formats, sizes that people are viewing them, but beyond that, that even people for professional applications rarely, even for large murals and stuff, rarely are going to look at the image out of something like, especially a Tamron 35mm f1.8 lens, which is ridiculously sharp with or without the FTZ adapter. Yeah, they're not going to look at those images or older Nikon glass that is, you know, was professional, is still professional, but I'm saying 5 years ago, you didn't have this mirrorless body, and that was your only option. These very expensive Nikon lenses, and if you think a lens from 5 years ago somehow is irrelevant now because mirrorless, come on, really? You got to realize too with mirrorless, I mean, there's going to be lemons and there's going to be great lenses. And I realize Nikon has put out a few really good lenses, but I think a lot of their lenses are relying heavily on software to make them look better than they are. And I'm not trying to slam their new lenses, I'm just trying to say that the legacy, as they call it, Nikon glass is still far above what you actually even need. It's just extremely good quality glass for so much less. Not all of it. I mean, there's still a lot of expensive f-mount glass, but yeah, there's just so many good lenses for the Nikon f-mount system. So this Nikon is a Nikkor AFS 70 to 300mm f4.5 to f5.6G. It's ED. I think that's extra dispersion elements. Yeah, anyways, it didn't come with a lens hood. I paid about $70 for this with pristine glass, and I mean, it just looked new, but it was used. This lens hood is actually from Velo, and I bought it because it was cheaper, and it came with this nice little detachable window. I wish it was one of the sliding kind, like I think Irix has, but it lets you put a CPL on there or a fader, and sorry if that's loud, but you can put your finger in there and adjust it, because, you know, with a deep lens hood like this, or really any lens hood, you have to either take it off or risk smudging it with your fingers and reaching in there and turning it. So it's a nice little addition, and it can go either way, top or bottom. I had a girlfriend like that. Anyways, it's a great lens. I don't think there's that much more to say, I mean, about why I'm keeping the Z6. I think the bottom line is that until somebody else produces something that gives me the same low light performance with the same beautiful out of camera colors and you know, autofocus that holds its own with Sony. Maybe Sony has an edge there, but I mean, it's close and it's great. What else? Yeah, I mean, of course the XQD cards, sorry, I only have one in there. They're limiting in their price because, you know, I just have the 64 gigabyte. I'm actually getting ready to purchase something bigger, but yeah, especially if you're shooting video. Like for photos, it gets me usually through a day. I mean, I can get, depending on the settings, you know, between 1,000 and 200 or 2,000 shots doing raw. Lately I've been doing uncompressed raw just to see if there really is a difference or not. Everyone says there's not, but I swear sometimes I see a difference. If you plan on doing a lot of video, get yourself at least like a 256 gigabyte card. It sounds like a lot, but you know, the video out of this is pretty high quality. I think it comes in at something like 130 megabits per second, maybe 150, I forget the actual. I think it's variable a bit, but You need a lot of memory. Oh, and that's actually something I'm hoping to do a review on. I was gonna buy it, so it's worth mentioning. I'm actually gonna go on a very beautiful vacation soon. I'm not gonna say where. I don't like to give my whereabouts out before I'm there, but I'm going somewhere where I should be able to get some really great video and photos, and that's why I'm buying the bigger memory card. But it was the too late time, I realized there actually is an adapter, and maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't, but there's actually an adapter now. It's been out for I think a year or so. There's actually a website that has open source for you to figure it out by yourself and do it. I could do that. I know how to solder, but I'm not going to, not this time. But anyways, what it is, it's like a dummy XQD card that runs out, looks like a rubberized ribbon cable. Sometimes they're just plain ribbon cables. You can DIY and make your own. There's a open kind of source information out there how to do that. But anyways, so it runs out that ribbon cable, and you can connect it to, and it has an NVMe, regular NVMe out of a computer adapter that you just plug the NVMe in, and it has usually they have a hard case to put it in. And the one I've been looking at, it even has a 1/4 inch to put on to the bottom of the camera or on a cage or whatever. So if you don't know, that's actually what an XQD/CFast. It is an NVMe. CFasts are actually NVMe drives. They're just little chubby ones still get the job done. But anyways, so obviously by being able to run that out and run to an actual NVMe, the price suddenly drops. I mean, where a 256 gigabyte CFast card is at the minimum going to cost you 300-ish, maybe 250, maybe 200 on sale. But you can get about 2 terabytes for that same price of a quality NVMe drive. So that's a clear advantage. The disadvantage there is that you have to either have the door open while you're doing that. Alternatively, you could take the door off, I'm sure, but carefully don't do. Okay, I didn't say to do that because you're probably going to break it. Because I've never even tried to take this one off. I'm sure I could figure it out, but I'm smarter than you. Sorry, just kidding. But no, I build drones and I figure out shit, and sometimes I break shit, so don't be like me. Anyways, the other option though I could see if somebody didn't care so much about cosmetics is you could shave out, maybe use a Dremel, but Dremel's going to melt it. Very carefully with a file or something, you could shave out just enough to, I'm not sure exactly the best point, but you could be able to close the door and have that cable coming out here. Probably, if you could angle it right, you want it coming out the bottom. And what you could do there is weather seal the NVMe, but it's probably going to get really hot. Maybe not. And in the process, you could weather it. Anyways, there's a way you could do it and keep the weather sealing. I'm confident in that. Don't ask me how to do it though, because I'm probably not going to try and do it with this. The only way I would consider that is if I had an extra battery door for resale. So who knows? Maybe I'll ask Nikon someday if they can give me an extra one. I'm trying to build a relationship with those guys in the future here. I used to do CP Plus for personal view, and I never got to interview Nikon. Maybe they were too smart to. They need to stay away from me. But there's more about that in a video coming, though. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with CP Plus and Panasonic too, the people who I leaked some information about recently that nobody believes. So yeah, the Z6 I think is a good camera for somebody who wants to do professional work, wants pretty much the best quality images of their children or family, wants a camera that there's basically, again, disregarding super high frame rates in 4K or super high frame rates in 1080p. I mean, 120 is pretty damn good, but it's the camera that can capture. There's no camera that is going to blow it away in low light that's going to blow it away in dynamic range. There's no camera that's going to blow it away in color rendering and just overall pleasing images. There's no camera that's going to blow it away in weather sealing, the ability to take it basically anywhere you want to take it and do photos and video. It's that camera that really, it's, you know, again, there are cameras that are better spec'd in each regard, for sure, okay? But you're going to find yourself hard pressed to be in a situation where you're not going to be able to get a good image out of this. Of course, pitch black, you want some lights, but pretty damn dark situations I filmed and it does pretty good. If I do upgrade, actually it's going to be, again, it's going to be probably a Z7 or Z7 II, because I want, for photos, I'm getting to that point where I do a lot of nature stuff, birds and whatnot, and landscape, and I want something that I can crop into and get a little more detail out of. So if I was giving my advice to someone who was just starting out and had a fairly low budget, I would say, you know, take a chance with a used Z6 on like B&H. You can get them sometimes for about $1,000. And instead of blowing all your money on lenses for the Z system, look into some alternatives. This Viltrox lens for $400 on B&H is a great deal. And especially if you're new to photography, some of the best advice I've ever heard is that instead of chasing lots of lenses, find yourself one lens and stick with it. Know what it can do and what it can't, and know how to get the most out of it. And you learn how to work with that lens, because it's really amazing what you can do with one lens, and that's part of the challenge. And that teaches you for the next lens you buy. You're going to have a totally different angle of view. Like if, let's say, switching from this to the 35 millimeter, it's really something that you have to be out there as much as possible, whether it's photos or videos, and getting to know your gear. Because you can have all the best gear in the world, but if you're not out there and you're not seeing the limitations as well as, you know, what you can do with your gear, you're not going to progress. I think most of us are naturally artists to some degree, and you know, we see something beautiful and we take the picture. If we have the right lens at the right time when we try to take that picture, it's going to be great. But 9 times out of 10, even 999 times out of 1,000, that angle's not going to be perfect, the distance is not going to be perfect, and as you progress, as you know this lens and that lens, and you decide maybe your favorite 2, or if you know you're younger than me, your favorite 3 or 4 lenses to carry around, you can switch them out quickly and say, okay, that's the lens I need for that. That's the lens that I think I may be able to get this shot with. So yeah, get out there, take some photos, take some videos. Don't be afraid to get into weird positions to get the photo you want. Don't be stupid. Don't walk off a cliff like some YouTubers. Seriously. It's great to get the shot, but be aware of your surroundings. Don't walk in front of cars. Don't walk in front of even bicycles. Just know your surroundings. Somebody else has probably said this, but here's the great thing. If you, before you take the shot, you look around to make sure that nobody's coming on a moped or walking at a brisk pace or whatever, you might find a shot that you didn't realize. You know, that person coming on the moped might be on a bright pink moped wearing a dinosaur helmet or something. You got it because you were thinking safety first. So that's your reward, your karmic reward. I think I'm going to end on that note. This is going to be a challenge to edit, and just want to say, you know, I'm not sentimental towards material items, but it's been a great camera. That's not me crying, that's me itching my nose. It's been a great camera. It got me through 2 years solid. Seriously, no issues whatsoever. This camera has been great, and I think that there's a lot of options out there, but you really can't go wrong with the Nikon Z6. got a little bit of everything and a lot of quality built into it. It really does. And I think that as long as Nikon progresses forward with the coming Z9 and Z8, I'm not going to buy the Z9. I don't think so. Too big, too pricey. But the Z8, we'll see. We'll see what they come out with there. But as long as they keep progressing forward and meeting the specs that the industry is evolving towards, I think I'll probably be sticking with Nikon for a while. I may also give another company a try, Sigma, if Sigma gets on the ball. Panasonic, yeah, I'm not going to jump to the GH6 most likely because it's hard to go back from full frame. Prove me wrong, Panasonic, but when they start doing phase detect on their full frames and they catch up to this level of autofocus or surpass it, Panasonic could take the Nikons out of my hand.